Hey yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're going to be giving you guys our review of the brand new As I Lay Dying album titled Shaped by Fire. So after listening to this album for an entire week, I have to say this album grew on me a lot. Like, when we did our first impressions, I was really on the fence about it for the most part because I enjoyed parts of it, but it got really monotonous to me, and I was really just kind of iffy about it. But after listening to it over and over, like non-stop, having this album on loop, I have to say it's really good. And I feel like the biggest thing this album has is its consistency. This band's been gone for a while. I believe this is their first album in like 7 years.
Yep.
And the fact that this album sounds as consistent as the other ones speaks volumes. I feel like fans of this band will love this album because it sounds just like all the other stuff, and that's not in a bad sense. Because you can say, oh, it just sounds like all the other shit, what the hell? But it's like the fact that they've been gone for so long, all this stuff happened to them as a band, all this stuff, whatever, Tim Lambesis, and they were able to come back and still able to capture the musical essence they had before is so impressive. It's like they never skipped a beat. It's like this album came out right after the last one, you know?
That's true.
Like immediately. The consistency is really, really impressive. So on top of that, I found that a lot of the riffs in this album were just very fun to listen to and very catchy. And I found the 3 singles they released really spoke to me in regards to that, which is, what were they? My Own Grave, Redefined, and I think the title track.
Well, they also released Blinded as well.
I feel like, yeah, the main ones that spoke to me though were Redefined, My Own Grave, and Shaped by Fire. In terms of the catchiness, like I'd always hear those, choruses come on and be like, oh yeah, I'd sing along with them a little bit, like they'd get into my head. And I, it's not like a bad kind of catchy either. It's a good kind. Like it felt good.
Yep.
And songs like Gatekeeper is still amazing. That one, what's cool about that one is that is a good change of pace. And I feel like that is a really good way to talk about this album because I saw some comments on our first impressions saying like, yeah, the album, doesn't really change the pace up very much. And I'm like, you know what? That's probably what my main issue was last week. The album didn't have that much of a change of pace. Because usually albums, halfway through, they'll bring it down and they'll go a bunch of different places, whereas this one's pretty consistent. But I feel like Gatekeeper changes the pace in a different way. Usually when you get halfway through an album, of course, you're gonna bring the energy down. Gatekeeper does the opposite. The energy goes up, it's a lot thrashier, it has that ridiculous solo in it. It's kind of interesting how they have a certain level for the album and then Gatekeeper is like a spike up. Yeah. As opposed to most albums where it's a spike, more chill and downward.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. I also felt myself really enjoying Undertow and Torn Between. For the same reasons I was enjoying the singles. They were really catchy and the riffs were just cool. Like it was overall enjoyable that way.
Yeah, I was really having trouble with the monotony, and I know, I totally agree with TV Fish. This band feels like they just didn't skip a beat. The consistency is there, but I think that that's almost to a fault because everything sounds the same. We've talked about how formulated it sounds. It still sounds like that to me. Gatekeeper, yes, was a bit of a breath of fresh air, but was it enough for me? I mean, it's probably my top song on the album. It's definitely heavier, thrashier. It's got the best solo. Tonally, it's a little bit different than the rest of the songs, which is cool, stands out that way. But is it enough? Does it really stand out? Not to me. To me, it still blends in very well with the album, which is cool because I guess it ties it all in, but the whole thing just sounds very, very similar. The songs you talked about in regards to being catchy, I assume you're talking about the choruses.
Yeah, that's the main thing, but even then the riffs kind of just get into you a little bit and you start bumping to them and it just kind of feels good that way. It feels very comfortable listening to.
Okay, so riffs and choruses. Choruses first, disregarding the guitars. The vocals in the chorus, I'm not a fan of clean singing when it comes to metal. Like certain aspects of it I like. In this, I don't like it. As I Lay Dying clean singing, I just don't like. Certain bands I could tolerate it, certain styles I could tolerate. This is not one of the ones I like, and anytime it happened, it put me off a little bit. Songs like Undertow, for example, are worse than other songs because they have more of that in the song. So I'm not sure if that's what you were finding by catchiness because it does have a bit of more of a poppy kind of vibe to it, and pop is catchy, that's the point of pop. But that was something that kind of threw me off and turned me off a little bit. I didn't hate it, it was fine, I tolerated it, but it's just not my preference. I could do without it, or I could do with maybe a bit more of a gritty, clean vocal. Nothing so the guy sounds like he's whining almost. I'm just not a fan of that style.
Yeah, that's more of a subjective thing, because I don't mind that really.
For
like,
sure,
it didn't
subjective.
really like bother me, and even then during the week, like I would make fun of it a little bit and whatever whiny stuff, but I still enjoy it.
Right.
Like I understand where you're coming from, but that's just a preference thing. You're not a fan, but I don't mind it.
Yeah, it just all depends on,
I think
the listener.
Yeah, like I think it's totally fine. I think it sounds cool in some senses.
Riffs, however, the riffs are the highlight of the album. This album's got amazing riffs. The guitar work is very nice on this album through and through. I wish the guitar solos were a little longer, but they're pretty short, but they are pretty nice. And yeah, man, I was really digging the riffs on here. My favorite song is probably, other than Gatekeeper, because of its tonal difference and its heaviness and stuff like that, but The Wreckage, which comes right after Gatekeeper, is one of my favorite songs in terms of riffs. I love the riffs on that song, especially the riffs that happen. I think it's like, the riffing on this album is very weird, but it's just this band, they do really weird riffing styles, but it's like the chorus, the verse riffs, and then there's this background riff in the pre-chorus or something like that. I don't know, hard to explain, but it's just really cool riff work. But then right after that, My Own Grave also has great riffing. Awesome song. That was the first track they released like a year ago. But those 3 tracks are all in a row, and that's obviously for that reason my favorite chunk of the album. After that, I feel like the album falls apart a little bit. Redefined is a good song, but Take What's Left, Only After We've Fallen, The Toll It Takes, those songs basically got lost to me throughout the week. They had nothing special about them. They all felt like the same song to me. There was just, they all seemed just like filler to me, those songs.
Honestly, I can agree. Like those 3 songs didn't really do much for me. The only thing I can really recall that stood out is at the beginning of Take What's Left, you know, Tim screams, I took what you gave me, or I took what you left me.
Yeah.
Other than that, I can't remember anything about them. I've been listening to the album all week, so nothing really from those 3 songs stood out to me either. So I feel like this album has all that catchy stuff, but it also, the monotony is still there a little bit. It's just doesn't feel as bad as it was to me when the album came out.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, as far as my opinion goes, like I can sit here and I can talk about riffs all day long. Like Torn Between has a sick riff in it as well. Blinded, the riffs in Blinded are awesome. But I mean, that's probably as far as my compliments are gonna go. The singing is pretty standard. Nothing great, nothing bad, but nothing great.
Yeah, one kind of issue with, and I don't know if you talked about this last week, you might have, with Tim Lambesis' vocals, is that it's like kind of overly consistent.
Yeah.
For the most part, he kind of has one kind of harsh, and I did notice a few tiny bits in some songs where he changes it up a little bit.
Of fluctuation, yeah.
But it's really not much. It's extremely consistent, and that's one thing that I think is a little bit undervalued when it comes to harsh vocals, is that if you can kind of create a range of different harshes, it really pushes the song in many different directions.
It creates a lot of dynamic for the music, and that's something that this band kind of suffers from a little bit. And yeah, I don't know. It's an enjoyable album. It really is. I mean, I can put it on from beginning to end, but I'm not gonna lie, I was getting a bit fatigued with it towards the end of the week for sure.
All right. Well, that being said, let's get to our rating. So, Vile, what do you rate this album?
As I just mentioned, it's pretty enjoyable, but there's some flaws. I feel like metalcore as a genre has kind of hit its peak. I feel like it's done kind of all it can do, and we're just seeing repeats of things in a lot of ways, but for the most part, still pretty good from beginning to end, so I'm going to give it a score of 6.5.
All right, respectable score. Now, for myself, this album is enjoyable to listen to, like, constantly. Like, throughout the week, I'd put it on, and I think this album's really good for background music, even. Like, it's got what it needs to kind of pull you in, but it's also good to fill space, so I think it's really effective for that. And it's not like I was disliking the album when I put it on. I'd put it on and feel totally fine. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's really huge for, like, fans of this band to enjoy, because it sounds so much like everything else. Like that is something that just kind of wowed me. That was something that just came out like in my head like earlier on in the week, and it really blew my mind that like, wow, these guys are that consistent. I think fans of this band will love it. So for that reason, like for all the reasons considered, I give it a 7, because it's a solid album. Honestly, from front to back, it is pretty good. There are issues, of course, but I think that combined with the fact that they really deliver to the fans in that sense, gives it a 7 for me.
Good score. So a 6.5 for me and a 7 from TV Fish. And yeah, as usual, we want to know what you guys think after a full week of listening to Shaped by Fire. So leave a comment below and let us know your thoughts. That's it for this video. So like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
We'll see you guys on the next one. Keep those heads banging.